Avengers Infinite Wars Chapter 8. Destroy Malevolence. Grievous, general of the droid army of the Separatists, was seething. He paced about the bridge of the damaged and fleeing Malevolence, at a complete state of fury, at coming so close to their objective, only to be halted at the very last second. The droid general had no true way of venting his anger, with a few unfortunate B-1 droids suffering their end under his fists. All that he could do right now is focus on his retreat from the Republic fleet currently pursuing his fleeing vehicle, while raining down heavy fire upon his ship. What is the status of the ship's engines? Grievous barked out to the droids. Operating at 60% capacity, sir. One of the pilot droids stated. But the Republic fleet keeps hitting us, making repairs difficult. Grievous growled. What of our reinforcements? They're under fire from another Republic fleet, said another pilot droid. Rah. Grievous simply decapitated the droid with his fist. Get us out of here and get our hyperdrive ready immediately. Roger, roger. The Malevolence slowly floated ahead of the Republic fleet being led by GD Masters Plo Koon and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Their weapons were utilized in full force, a constant bombardment on the enemy ship with no intention of relenting. Behind the two GDs stood Admiral Yularen, as the trio of high-ranking men observed the damaged ship. Commander. Obi-Wan glanced down to a clone commander below. What is the damage level to the enemy ship? She's lost primary shielding and stabilizers, the clone commander stated. But the ship is so massive, it's taking all of our ship's firepower. We can't take her down with what we have. Plo Koon nodded at this. We must summon reinforcements. That's why we're here, Master Plo. Kenobi and Plo looked behind them to see Anakin and Ahsoka enter the bridge, accompanied by Captain Rogers and Ant-Man. Anakin. Obi-Wan greeted. Glad to see you've made it. Captain Rogers, Mr. Lang. Obi-Wan. Steve greeted. Hey there. Scott simply said before his eyes were quickly drawn towards the one-sided fight in front of them. Wonder how long that'll last. Hopefully not long. Ahsoka commented. Master Skywalker, have you made contact with Luminar? Plo Koon inquired. Yes, Master. Anakin responded with a clicked tongue. She's currently busy with a fleet of Separatist reinforcements nearby. She won't be able to give us support until she's turned them away. Hearing this made the two GD Masters nod slightly bitter as they wanted to take care of the enemy ship post-haste. Then we'll have to make do with what we have. The Republic fleet continued with its attack on the Malevolence, while the droid general on the enemy bridge clung on for support as his ship was rocked back and forth. Upon a recent massive quake, Grievous spoke. Status report. Hyperdrive is still inactive, and forward engines are losing power. A droid pilot informed. Our primary weapon is destroyed. If he still had teeth, the cyborg would be grinding them into dust at this point. Grievous glanced over to several droids that seemed to be just standing there doing nothing. What are you still doing here? Get down to the hyperdrive and start making repairs. As if snapping out of a daze, the droids all ran out of the bridge to their new destination. Placing his metallic hand onto his face, he tried relieving the headache that was building up now. Bleep bleep bleep. His communicator was going off, prompting Grievous to answer knowing who it was on the other end. General Grievous, said the familiar baritone voice of Count Dooku. Lord Dooku. Grievous inclined his head in a bow. What is the status of the Malevolence? Dooku inquired calmly. It has not sustained crucial damage as of late. All Grievous was met was a dry look in return, knowing full well his lie wasn't going to cut it. General, with what is happening now, I have arranged a trap which will give you an advantage over the GD. That is unnecessary, Count Dooku. I assure you the GD and Republic will fail in capturing myself and this ship. Grievous said confidently. Do not compound your failure this day by allowing our prize warship to fall, all because of your wounded pride. Ignoring Grievous's current mood, Dooku continued. Heading towards you is a very important galactic senator. With her as your hostage, they will call off their attack. Begrudgingly, General Grievous had no choice other than to comply. As you wish, my lord. Back on the Republic ship with the GD generals and Avengers, they remained on course with their trail behind the Malevolence. Admiral, status report. They're not attempting to jump to hyperspace, sir. Hearing this, Scott pondered with Anakin mirroring his action. So that means they can't get away, right? Skywalker nodded his head in confirmation. Their hyperdrive is definitely damaged then. This is the chance we need then. Obi-Wan said determinedly. All ships target the bridge. Maximum firepower with everything they have. Meanwhile, unknown to the Republic forces, a lone sleek ship was traveling through hyperspace right towards the battle. Aboard the ship was none other than Senator Padme Amidala, with her husband's personally created protocol droid, C-3PO. "My lady, are you sure the information from Chancellor Palpatine is reliable?" C-3PO questioned with utmost worry. Pad nodded with a sideways glance. Yes, it was secretly given to him by the supreme executive of the banking clan himself. A small smile soon formed from her lips. If they leave the Separatist alliance, it will go a long way to shortening this war. The onboard computer beeped several times, signaling the pilot. Oh, good. We're approaching the system now. The Naboo senator expected the vastness of empty space, with one ship carrying the banking clan executive. My goodness. 3PO cried out in apt alarm. What she got was, however, was anything but empty, with her ship almost crashing into a flaming wreck of a ship. This isn't right. Padme stammered out in On the Malevolence, Padme's arrival was detected. Sir, we're scanning a small ship off our bow. Good. Grievous said with sinister satisfaction. Our hostage has arrived. Padme banked sharply, narrowly avoiding the large ship before her, while sending out an immediate distress call. Mayday, mayday. Padme spoke frantically. This is Senator Amidala. I've flown directly into the line of an enemy droid ship. Are there any Republic forces nearby? On the Republic side of things, Ahsoka, who had been monitoring the situation, had picked up on the call. Masters. Ahsoka spoke up. I'm picking up a signal near the enemy vessel. One that came out from hyperspace just now. Enemy reinforcements? Anakin asked. The Tortuga Padawan shook her head. No. It looks like a Naboo ship from its design. Assuming the worst, Anakin gave a quick order. Gunners stand down. Naboo? Steve murmured to himself. Isn't that Senator what was her name, Amidala? Isn't she from Naboo? What in the blazes are they doing out there? Obi-Wan asked aloud. We're getting a distress call from them, Ahsoka said. With the clones picking up the signal, the bridge's crew was able to hear the message. Mayday, mayday, this is Senator Amidala requesting any nearby Republic forces for assistance. Feeling his blood run cold, Anakin bolted from his spot and typed away into the nearby console, in order to speak with his secret wife. And it didn't take long for her to respond. Padme? What are you doing out here? Anakin asked in alarm. I was sent here on a mission. His wife replied, the sound of exerting her control of the ship clear to hear. The Senate told me that the banking clan dang it wanted to negotiate a treaty. Get out of there as fast as you can. Anakin nearly shouted. Before Padme could make the attempt, her ship violently shook. Looking over, she asked the protocol droid. Have we been hit? I'm afraid it's much worse than that. Padme, what's happening? Anakin asked, with everyone else behind him becoming quite worried now. I'm being pulled inside the droid cruiser by a tractor beam, she answered. Looks like they were aware of me coming here. I will not be made a separatist bargaining chip. Continue your attack. You must destroy this monstrous ship. Anakin, however, was hearing none of that. Admiral, order our ships to stop firing. Bueller only nodded, bitterly, while the others looked on in concern. What do we do now? Cap asked Anakin, who silently clenched his fists in frustration, not finding an answer for a brief moment. On board the Naboo cruiser, C-3PO voiced the obvious. It does not look safe out there, my lady. This whole thing was a trap, and I'm afraid I walked the two of us right into it, she said, slamming her fists onto her console. In the Malevolence bridge, Grievous heard some welcome news. Sir, the Republic cruisers have halted their attack. The cyborg chuckled. GDR so predictable. Turning his attention back towards his crew, he gave an order. Get the repair team up here. Continue working on the hyperdrive. And what will you do, sir? I'm going down to the main hangar. Grievous answered. This ship must be returned to Count Dooku intact. There is no room for failure. Grievous made his way down to the rail jets within the Malevolence, as it was made to transport equipment and personnel around the ship due to his size. Stepping onto an arriving railjet, Grievous was sent off on his way towards the main hangar. And in the end of his vision did he see his prize. Approaching the Naboo cruiser, the Separatist general ordered a pair of droids to follow him inside, so he may confront his hostage. He expected to see Senator Amidala sitting at the pilot chair, wearing a visage that carried much bravado in order to hide her cowardice. He expected her to no doubt fight back as she struggled to free herself from her soon-to-be captor. Only none of that happened, as she was not there. Where is she? One of the droids looked at the console and voiced what it was reading. Looks like the engines are set to destroy themselves. This got quite the reaction from the Kalish cyborg, causing him to quickly turn and shove the droids out of his way. Hey, that's just rude. Kaboom. From their hiding spot in the Malevolence's hangar, Padme had to suppress a chuckle in seeing the droids running around in crazed madness, with what she just pulled with her now destroyed ship. Sometimes overloading the power system does wonders in causing mass confusion. Thought the Naboo senator as she and the protocol droid moved elsewhere. Gonna need to find a way off this ship with 3PO. Anakin in the meantime huffed in slight annoyance, turning to leave the bridge. And where do you think you're going? Kenobi asked expectantly. Someone has to save her skin. I thought you might say that. Well, I'm coming too then. Captain America spoke up. Captain Rogers, there's no need for such assistance. Obi-Wan said. You and your team have done more than enough for us this day. I'm going to have to apologize and refuse, Kenobi. Rogers countered. Let's just say I owe her a bit of a favor to Senator Amidala. Besides, she's a civilian, an important one at that. We need to get her out of here as soon as possible. Anakin only grinned with approval and appreciation. Thanks for the support, Cap. PLO only sighed expectantly, amusedly stating. I can't decide which one is worse or better. The super soldier or the maverick GD. Well, I think he's awesome. Scott said with a bit of a fanboyish grin, quickly following after his idol and leader. You get used to it, was all Ahsoka could say. Down below in the hangar bay of the Republic ship, Sam Wilson and James Rhodey stood by some clone pilots who were explaining to them the basic fundamentals of piloting a starship. It's all about which button to push and the rhythm you use when you're flying. Matchstick of Shadow Squadron explained. This is your basic controls here and here. Firing primary weapons over the handle. Sam and Rhodey nodded, their suits on in order to record everything that they had been listening to for the past hour, while the battle in space raged on. A few times, the clone pilot had asked them to repeat what he had said, and was happily surprised to see them memorize everything down to detail, allowing him to go into the further mechanics of ship flying. Well, they knew how to properly fly the ships back on their homeworld, but these ones before them were another story. While there was a familiarity to them, both flyers knew they would need to forcibly start from level 1, before working their way up and incorporating their own flying methods into these new ones. Still, they were making good headway in the eyes of Matchstick. Before the clone pilot could continue his lecture, Sam saw a familiar bunch coming from the corner of his eye. Falcon nudged Rhodey in the side, getting his attention as the others soon noticed. Hey Sam, Rhodey. Anakin called out. Can I borrow you two for a while? The flying pair looked at each other before the colonel spoke. What's up? We're going on a rescue op, said the voice of Captain Rogers, who walked out from behind the GD along with Obi-Wan and Scott. Senator Amidala is on the Malevolence, and we need to get her out of here. Amidala? Sam asked, falling in step with his team leader and friend. The one who offered her our help after Naboo. The same. How'd she get on the enemy ship? Rhodey asked in slight bewilderment. It was most likely a trap, Anakin stated as he ushered the group to follow him towards the twilight. Don't know how it was pulled so quickly, but that doesn't matter now. I trust you've already formulated a brilliant plan to rescue the senator, Kenobi said inquisitively. As a matter of fact, I have, Anakin stated confidently as they boarded the twilight. But do we have a plan B? Every operation needs a backup, Anakin, Kenobi insisted. Is there even a plan C? Scott asked. Can't hurt if multiple ones. I don't have a backup yet, Anakin admitted. But I do have a plan for getting on that ship. Really? Sam asked as the assembled group of men sat themselves in the twilight. The enemy sensors are obviously damaged, so we'll sneak in behind them and dock at the emergency airlock, Anakin said simply. Wait, what? That's your plan? Rhodey asked in slight disbelief. Just fly there, land, hope they don't spot us, and walk in through the front door. Yeah, basically, Anakin said sheepishly. Oh, brilliant, drawled out the GD master. Not the worst I've heard, Scott remarked, turning an eye roll from Sam, something the ex-con caught. Hey, it fooled you. Oh, that's how it's going to be. Ignoring Falcon and Ant-Man argue and banter, Anakin quickly got into his seat and started turning on the ship's engines. Let's get going. Back aboard the Malevolence, Padme continued to sneak her way around the ship with a very paranoid 3PO right behind her. She soon stopped at a control panel, trying to get through its security defenses. Pardon me, my lady, but might I suggest we keep moving to another location? C-3PO chimed in. I think I hear battle droids approaching. I know, 3PO, but we also need to contact the fleet, Padme said in frustration. If I can just get this comm panel working. 3PO merely looked over the corner. My lady, I'm afraid I was right. General Grievous walked at the head of a small droid unit down the hallway towards Padme's direction. Thinking fast, Padme grabbed a large metal panel that had fallen from the wall that it had been a part of and hid herself behind it with 3PO. Grievous approached the control panel when a droid contacted him through his communicator. General. What? The damage to the hyperdrive was not as bad as we first thought, the droid stated. We should be able to get underway again shortly. This pleased the Kalish cyborg quite well. I must inform Count Dooku. He turned towards most of his unit and gave an order. Stay here. Continue the search. Find the stowaway and bring them to me. Roger, Roger. Grievous walked away, leaving Padme to contemplate her next move, while the droid units left her area, making it safe for the moment. Outside the Malevolence, Anakin kept a steady course towards the enemy ship, making sure not to make any sudden action that would alert the droids to their presence. If they spot us, we'll be pulverized, Obi-Wan said knowingly. They're too busy repairing the ship. Anakin casually brushed off. They don't have time to notice us. Obi-Wan sighed exasperately. Subtlety has never been one of your strong points, Anakin. Everything I know I learned from you, Master. Anakin countered with a wry grin. If only that were true. If you guys are done being a married couple, we're getting close to the hangar bay, Sam said with a dry tone. We're not a married couple. Sheesh, take a joke why don't you? Scott said, checking his gear one last time. Need to brighten up that dank life of yours. Yeah, Obi-Wan. Anakin grinned at his master. Take a joke. Is everyone against me today? Kenobi remarked. Scott, for the love of God and all that is holy, never do that joke again, Sam said, massaging the bridge of his nose. No promises. Docking the ship now, Anakin announced, finding the right spot to enter the Malevolence. Attaching the twilight to the ship caused two droids nearby to stumble. Did you hear that? What? That noise. It sounded like a ship docking at one of the emergency airlocks. Your circuits are loose. Nobody would be crazy enough to do that. Flying ahead of the others, Falcon and War Machine landed in front of the door leading out of the airlock, with Scott, Steve, Anakin, Obi-Wan and R2-D2 joining them via platform. Anakin, you're crazy, Obi-Wan stated firmly. Spinning is not flying. Really? Sam said. We do that all the time. I think it applies differently for the two of you, Kenobi retorted, pointing towards Sam and Rhodey. Tony did say it's a good trick, Rhodey said with a shrug. See, Master, Anakin said with a triumphant grin. These two guys get it. Thanks, guys. Nice to know you have my back. Obi-Wan merely rolled his eyes as they approached the door. We do not want to get spotted. As soon as Obi-Wan finished that statement, the doors opened to reveal the two droids who were nearby. You were saying? It's them. I knew it was. Several rounds were blasted into the droids' heads, rendering them useless as their bodies collapsed onto the ground. The small band of men looked down at the scraps. Well, there goes our element of surprise, Sam said. Did you have to destroy their heads? Scott said with an uncomfortable cringe. Why are you complaining about that? Besides from the usual, I wanted to see if I could hack into their servers and see what makes them tick. Maybe even compromise most of their systems as a whole. Scott kicked the head off as it soared across the hallway. Since when could you do that? Sam asked in surprise. I've been busy these past few months before coming here, Scott said. Figured I should try new things. Try it out on these guys. Anakin adopted a curious look with Obi-Wan soon following. Save that thought for later, Anakin encouraged. That could be really useful later on. Will do. Pulling off his shield from his back, Steve adjusted the strap once slipped onto his arm. It's better if we split up into two teams, Steve said. Cover more ground that way. Sounds like a plan, Anakin agreed. Cap, Sam, mind coming with me? Sure thing. I don't mind. Mr. Lang, Colonel Rhodes, if you would. Kenobi gestured to the opposite direction that Anakin, Steve and Sam ran off to. Got it, Scott said, shrinking down to right atop Kenobi's shoulder while the GD and Rhodey ran together. Will you be fine there? Obi-Wan asked as his eyes trained on the miniature figure on his person. Oh yeah, totally. Scott waved off. I've done this a lot. Whilst the separate groups ran through the hulls of the ship, they had all received a call from Ahsoka back from the Republic fleet. Master, we've gotten into contact with the senator. Ahsoka said through their comms. Patching you through to her right now. Padme? Anakin. Padme's relieved voice was heard through the comms. Are you alright? Where are you? Anakin asked somewhat worriedly. On the lower levels. Padme answered. I'm fine, but I don't know for how long. Droids are everywhere. I'm on board with the rescue party. Anakin said. What? Padme exclaimed. What are you doing here? Keywords were rescue party there, ma'am. Sam cut in. Huh. Who was? Wait, that voice sounds familiar. We're here to get you off this ship, Senator. Steve now spoke. Captain Rogers. I wasn't aware that the Avengers were here. Not wasting any more time, Anakin interrupted their little conversation. Ahsoka, how can we get to the Senator? According to our scans, there seems to be a larger open area in the center of the ship. It should be halfway between the two of you. Ahsoka said from her end of the comms. Did you hear that, Padme? I'll be there. Anakin said excitedly. Hold on. Steve interjected. We're still on an enemy ship. And that means that there's a lot of droids patrolling around. The plans and orders on getting this ship up and running again. So? Scott asked a silent question. We're gonna need to cause a lot of noise here. Steve said. One that can keep attention off both the Senator's location and the attempts being made to repair the ship. I'll handle that, Cap. Rhodey confidently spoke out. I got the firepower. I'll get more on the inside. Scott added on. See what I could do. See now, Anakin, this is a plan. Obi-Wan said with his usual wit. I don't hear any good ones coming out of you, Obi-Wan. Anakin wryly shot back. With objectives and goals clearly defined, both separate parties now knew what to do. On the bridge of the Malevolence, Grievous had returned. General. A pilot droid spoke up. We just detected an unauthorized communication coming from within the ship. What did it say? Well, we don't know. The droid admitted. We didn't catch it in time. Monitor all internal communications. Grievous barked out. I want that senator on this spry. The general was abruptly cut off by the ship violently shaking with warning sounds blaring all around. What was that? Grievous growled out. It's Hangar Bay 2, sir. The same pilot droid from before answered. It has sustained heavy damage from bombings. What? Grievous roared out. How is this possible? The Republic wouldn't dare to authorize an attack when a senator is on board. Bring up security cams now. One of the screens switched over to Hangar Bay 2 of the Malevolence, displaying the clear level of destruction that area had suffered. The grayish-silver blue flew by before hover in mid-air with its arms out. It was a humanoid droid, blasting away at anything and everything in sight before unleashing several rockets onto the hangar bay, destroying the camera in the process. Luckily or unluckily, really another perspective from the hangar replaced the previous one, now displaying Obi-Wan Kenobi in action. As your lightsaber ignited, the GD slashed and cleaved his way through one droid after another, whilst deflecting blaster bolts sent in his direction. All the while, an unseen force was covering the GD's blind spots, with droids jolting about before pieces of them were violently cracked off. Seething internally, Grievous silently stalked out the room, giving out one last order to locate the senator and bring her to the bridge. Meanwhile, Cap, Sam and Anakin arrived at one of the many railways of the Malevolence, taking a moment to look around. Where do you think she is? Steve asked Anakin. I think the better question is where in the are we? Sam inquired aloud. Without needing an incentive, Sam jumped forward with his wings popping out as he took to the skies. Anakin couldn't help but let out a small whistle. Wish I had something like that. Suddenly, the familiar sounds of blaster fire was heard at one of the lower levels. Found her? Sam said, descending down to her. Anakin ignited his lightsaber, and with Cap began their jumps down to the senator. Sam flew down right in front of her and fired at the droids. Cavalry's arrived, Senator. Lieutenant Wilson. Padme said in relief. That's twice now you've saved my life. Don't forget to thank them. Wilson said, gesturing his head up to Steve and Skywalker as both were getting closer. Anakin. Padme whispered under her breath. Okay, that's a lot of bots. Sam stated aloud. Time to go. Without getting any prompt from the aviator, Sam grabbed both Padme and 3PO and held on tightly as he set his thrusters to max. Flying at top speeds, Sam felt his muscles strain themselves to hold the much heavier protocol droid until finally reaching his allies. Will you? Sam exhaled, letting both individuals go. Anakin. Padme couldn't help but run up to her secret husband, hugging him fiercely. Well, that part of the mission is done. Steve mused aloud. Glad to see you're alive and well, Senator. I can't thank you and your team enough, Captain Rogers. Padme said graciously. They have saved my life twice in such a short amount of time. If you keep this up, you'll catch up to Anakin's record in no time. Anakin only grinned bashfully before contacting Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan, we got Padme safe and secure. What's your status? On Obi-Wan's end, he slashed a super battle droid. He turned to face the raging fires of the hangar bay he, Scott and Rhodes had just finished demolishing. Beside him, Rhodey landed, though Scott was nowhere to be found. Great to hear, Anakin. Obi-Wan replied. Colonel Rhodes and I are finished up around here, though we did get separated from Scott unfortunately. I'm okay, Cap. Scott chimed in. Just a little off course. I could still see Kenobi and Rhodey. Really? Obi-Wan said, looking around. But we can't see you. Hold on a sec. Though it was small, a tiny hole seemingly popped out amongst the flames, and from it grew Ant-Man. Was caught up on the other side of the flames. Scott explained straight away, patting down to get some ash off of him. Alright, so what do we do now? Rhodey asked. Anakin, Rogers and Wilson have Senator Amidala secure. Obi-Wan said. But that doesn't mean we're clear to go. Padme's voice rang out through Kenobi's link. Master Obi-Wan, I overheard that the hyperdrive isn't as damaged as they initially believed. They'll be able to repair it in a short amount of time. Didn't you say that the hyperdrive was nearby? Rhodey asked Kenobi, to which he nodded. Obi-Wan then held up his wrist link. Anakin, you and the others head for the Twilight. The three of us will handle the hyperdrive. Copy that, Obi-Wan, we'll see you back at the ship. Anakin said. Let's go, guys, we're wasting time standing around. Both parties were on the move once more, each with a destination in mind. Kenobi's group had to go through several small units of droids before at last arriving at the hyperdrive, finding 2 droids at the controls. However, their arrival was met with a large contingent of droids surrounding the 3 of them from all the walkways. Oh boy. Scott murmured, getting back to back with the others, as the trio faced the separatist forces when they heard a mechanical laugh. Turning in the direction where they came, a larger droid fell from above, with its slick yellow eyes boring right into them. Hello there. It said tauntingly. General Grievous. Obi-Wan said coyly. Wait. Rhodey held up his thumb to the droid hybrid. That's General Grievous. Ah, you must be thrilled to meet someone of my stature. Grievous said arrogantly. How does a robot look like they need serious rehab? Scott questioned aloud. Seriously, are you okay? Cause you look like you're on drugs. Grievous felt his neck twitch at the jibe. And you two are one of these Avengers that have been interfering in a war that is not your own. Grievous seethed. Do you wish for an early death? Ha, generic villain speech up the wazoo. Rhodey quipped. Geez, and I thought you were something special. I will enjoy ripping you apart myself, droid. Grievous growled out. Not a droid, bolthead. Grievous simply had enough. Kill them all. Yikes. Scott immediately shrunk down whilst Obi-Wan began deflecting blaster bolts with Rhodey flying up. War Machine unleashed his firepower with both arms firing at the other 2 pathways, while his shoulder gun fired primarily at the general. Letting out a guttural sound akin to an animal, Grievous dodged the gunfire and whipped out 2 of his lightsabers. His hands began spinning in a rapid fashion, managing to deflect the bullets and the melted metal that had come about as a result of lead-meeting saber. Some, however, did manage to go past Grievous's defenses and stain his body. This further enraged the droid general, making him recall his sabers and crawl around on all 4s under the bridge he stood upon. Okay, that wasn't creepy at all. Rhodey remarked with a shiver. Come on. Scott yelled out, jumping from droid to droid on the left-hand pathway to clear the way. We gotta get out of here. Obi-Wan took a moment to see that while the initial contingent of droids were destroyed, more were on their way with a larger squadron of Droidekas, and the GD didn't want to deal with them at this moment. Right, let's go. Rhodey and Kenobi ran down the path Scott had cleared, with Grievous coming back up from beneath the pathways and running after them in pursuit. War Machine contacted Steve in the middle of his retreat. Hey Cap, we ran into a snag. Too many enemy forces at the hyperdrive. We're gonna need another way to take down the ship. Back on their end, having gotten the news, the group ground to a halt. We'll figure something out then, Rhodey. Steve replied. Head back to the ship. Copy that, Cap. Okay, so change of plans then, what now? Sam commented. We make our way to the bridge. Anakin declared. Why there? Steve inquired. They broke into a run while Anakin explained. I know you guys are still new to all this, so I'll make it brief. There's 2 ways to fix the hyperdrive depending on the ship's size. A small starfighter requires for you to directly repair the drive. A ship like this size, you could repair it or make it function from the bridge. So what does that mean? Sam asked. Means we could set a little trap for Grievous and send this ship crashing into the Rishi moon, and not waste a single ounce of our firepower. Anakin grinned roguishly. Steve got a weird sense of deja vu, shaking it off as they rounded a corner to face 2 battle droids. Look, GD. The one on the right cried out, raising its blaster. No wait. The one on the left cried out in vain as his partner fired only for his blaster bolt to be deflected by Anakin right to center. I knew that wasn't going to work. The remaining droid sat dejectedly before being bashed down by a flying vibranium shield. Gentlemen. Padme called from behind, and the group turned to see a group of super battle droids. Oh boy. Steve didn't hesitate. Reeling back his throwing arm, Steve flung his shield at the wall with a specific diagonal acute angle. The shield rapidly ricocheted against the walls until it reached the oncoming supers, shredding them to pieces with clean slices that left scraps on the ground. How in the Force's name do you do that? Anakin said in complete awe. All in the wrists. Steve casually said, catching the returning shield. Right, the wrists, he says. Sam said with a full unimpressed voice, the group resuming their run to the bridge. Back with Kenobi, he and his 2 companions were now evading a very incensed and furious Grievous, who was now wielding 4 lightsabers all at once. During their little battle, Rhodey had learned that he could deflect repulsor beams, though at the cost of stumbling back. Normally this would be an advantage, but the general proved to be very agile and nimble, utilizing the area around to quickly rebound from these attacks, in order to keep them on their toes. We're getting nowhere with this, Rhodey said to Kenobi and Scott. You fools. Grievous snarled boastfully. I have been trained by Count Dooku and installed with the strongest metal the Separatists have to offer. I have cut down dozens of GD and hundreds of clones since the inception of the war. And yet, can't seem to take us down. War Machine countered, switching to his electrified hammer. It is only a matter of time. The amount of times I have heard that since the beginning. Kenobi drawled out. Grievous only moved to engage, with Rhodey's hammer thankfully being able to repel the lightsabers, while Kenobi blocked his own. Scott instead shrank out of sight, though Grievous managed to keep his eye on him. This proved to be a mistake as Grievous was abruptly decked in the face from a left hook by Rhodey. Letting out a pained grunt, Grievous retaliated with powerful boot to the Colonel's chest. Taking a swipe at Kenobi, Obi-Wan jumped away to dodge the saber. The droid general made a step to move forward when suddenly one of his sabers shut down. What? Then, without warning, a metal plating on the same arm that held the saber violently shot off from the body. Eyes widening in alarm, Grievous began to shake about erratically. His arm spasmed like crazy before his robotic limb went limp. What is happening to me? Oh man. You gonna take this to the shop, buddy? Scott stressed out, pulling out yet another major circuit inside of the cyborg. Who's speaking? Oh, this is your conscience, replied the Ant-Man, jumping to another wire. We don't talk a lot these days. What is the meaning of this? My word, Obi-Wan murmured, completely astounded. You've actually done it, Mr. Lang. Done what? Rhodey asked, confused by the GD Master's reaction. I always assumed I was the only one who was capable of getting under the General's skin, Obi-Wan stated. But Scott has literally done so with exceptional efficiency. Rhodey blinked in silence for several seconds, until breaking down into a fit of laughter, unable to hold himself back at the sheer absurdity of Obi-Wan's comment. Alright, I needed that, Rhodey said with mirth. So glad that I could entertain you fools. Grievous roared, stepping forward only for his leg to wobble and forced him to collapse. Obi-Wan moved forward to strike down the general once and for all, but the telltale sounds of a large group of droids, coming up from behind their general to support him, made him pause. Grievous saw this momentary pause and with his other limbs, quickly attacked the 2 regular-sized humans, knocking them back and making a hasty retreat. Guys. Scott regrew to full size, moving over to help them both up. Are you alright? We'll live. Obi-Wan grunted, massaging his stomach. Giving the ex-con an appreciative nod, Kenobi saw the hallway from which they ran from now filled with a long line of droids. We gotta get out of here, Rhodey declared. Yes, let's. Kenobi nodded in agreement, the 3 men running off with the droid battalion now in pursuit. Elsewhere, Anakin, Steve, Sam, Padme and 3PO had arrived on the bridge of the Malevolence. Upon their arrival, it took a sum total of 3 seconds for the 3 men to make quick work of the droids in the bridge. Okay, that takes care of them, Sam remarked. Yup, and now, time for my surprise, Anakin said mischievously, cracking his fingers in anticipation while getting to work. I guess that leaves us with the house cleaning, Padme plainly shrugged. It didn't take long for the droid remains to get piled into the elevator they had used in getting to the bridge, nor Anakin for leaving his coded trap within the Separatist system. Alright, that's all done, Anakin announced. Let's get out of here. R2, prep the ship for departure. The two teams were now full on sprinting back to the Twilight. Swatting aside droids along the way, others droids were soon in hot pursuit of the ragtag group of intruders. Soon enough, both groups reconvened at the entrance to the airlock with the Twilight waiting for them on the other side. Quickly piling into the ship, Anakin hastily detached himself from the Malevolence and gunned it back towards friendly space. However, it was not to be so simple as that. General Grievous was now in pursuit despite one of his arms not functioning properly, with a squadron of vulture droids backing him. We have guns, anybody care to use them? Anakin asked aloud as the vulture droids fired repeatedly at them. Steve was already on his feet grabbing hold of the primary cannon. Press your Captain Rogers, Padme instructed. Thank you, Senator, Steve said, taking aim. Pressing down the trigger, Steve blew a vulture droid out from its course. As the Twilight drew closer, Plo Koon saw the enemy fighters on its tail, ordering the ships to open fire to defend the Twilight. While the Twilight weaved in between friendly fire, Grievous wasn't letting up on his course, piloting his fighter as best as he could to gain on the fleeing ship. General Grievous. A projection of a droid appeared on the Kalish's controls. What is it? The hyperdrive has been completely repaired, the droid informed. Should we retreat to friendly space? Activate the hyperdrive, Grievous ordered. I'll meet you back at our secret base in Sector 4. Grievous returned his focus onto the Twilight, which had successfully shot down 2 of the other vulture droids. Narrowing his eyes, Grievous increased his speed and fired a shot right on one of the engines of the Twilight. On said ship, R2-D2 made a series of whirring noises. Gentlemen, Milady, R2 has just notified me that the enemy ship is powering up its hyperdrive. Let's hope this trap of yours works, Anakin, Sam said. Trap? Obi-Wan inquired curiously. What trap? Don't want to spoil the surprise, Anakin said knowingly. Grievous was gaining on them when abruptly, the Malevolence bridge made contact with him again. Sir, we appear to experiencing problems with the hyperdrive. I thought you said the hyperdrive was fixed, Grievous barked out in annoyance. There seems to be something wrong with Navi computer, the droid rambled on. It's setting us right at the moon. Fools, Grievous admonished angrily. Reset the Navi computer, now. On the bridge of the Malevolence, the droids desperately tried to get the ship under control, as it began to plummet down to the nearby moon's surface. In less than a few seconds, the Malevolence met its end in a fiery crash for all to see from their ships. Grievous had rejected a transmission from Dooku, choosing instead to escape the area. The Republic forces on the Venator ships all cheered and celebrated to a successful end to a long mission, whilst the Avengers and GD on the Twilight all laid back with relief. After a beat of silence, Anakin twisted in his seat to face the Avengers. So, how was your first mission? Anakin asked with a wry grin. Steve exhaled, leaning on the wall with a shrug. Well, a giant enemy ship crashed and for once I wasn't on it. The galaxy natives gave the super soldier bewildered looks, whilst his friends couldn't help but laugh aloud at the comment, knowing all too well on Steve's past. Alright then, Obi-Wan said with an amused shrug. Let's head home. Gasp. Cough cough dot. The young man rose himself onto all fours, hacking and coughing, violently thumping his chest to get out the air mixed with dust he had inadvertently inhaled. Getting into a sitting position, the individual rubbed his eyes which were blurry. Letting out a few more coughs, he managed to steady his breathing and open his eyes to find himself in some barren wasteland. What the hell? The man asked aloud, looking around to find the same environment on all sides, seemingly stretching off into the distance. Steadily getting to his feet, he held up his hand to his ear and spoke. Hello? He asked no one in particular. Guys? Cap? Sam? Wonder. Is there anyone nearby or on comms? He only got static as a response. Scratching his silver hair, Pietro Maximoff was at a momentary loss as to where he was and what he should do. Normally, this would be the point where he'd be brash and impatient, running off into any random direction, in hopes of figuring out where and what was going on. But his time under Captain Rogers and the rest of the Avengers has tempered his usual impulsive nature. Somewhat. Trying to get into contact with the others once more, especially his sister, Pietro failed to get any answers. Gritting his teeth, Pietro stomped on the ground in aggravation. Sighing to himself, Pietro squinted at the horizon on all sides until he saw something that vaguely resembled a village far off in the distance. Throwing his hands up in the air, Pietro loosened himself up. Jumping from one foot to another while shaking his hands, Pietro inclined his upper body forward, while positioning his legs when he burst forward at full speed, leaving behind a blurry after-image, and a streak of bluish-silver following in his wake. A small cloud of dust was thrown up into the air. It covered the area for a small moment until the dust settled down, revealing a humanoid with orange skin standing where the speedster once stood. The humanoid was what was known as a Twi'lek, and it had attempted to sneak up on the speedy Avenger, only to be left stunned at what he had just witnessed. He had been around the galaxy several times before, had seen Jedi, warlords, bounty hunters, and now the galactic war that plagued his planet. But a man who can run faster than the eye could see. That was certainly a new one for Chamsindullah. We're glad to be back after such a long break. So before I close this out, I present to you all a first for me in this story. Omik, co-written by JEBEST4781 and FreeManWriter. The droid general made a step to move forward towards his foes, when suddenly one of his sabers shut down. What? Then, without warning, a metal plating on the same arm that held the saber violently shot off from the body. Eyes widening in alarm, Grievous began to shake about erratically. His arm spasmed like crazy before his robotic limb went limp. What is happening to me? Oh man. You gonna take this to the shop, buddy? Scott stressed out, pulling out yet another major circuit inside of the cyborg. Who's speaking? Oh, this is your conscious, replied the Ant-Man, jumping to another wire. We don't talk a lot these days. What is the meaning of this? As War Machine and Obi-Wan Kenobi eventually went into a laughing fit, Grievous quickly stood up straight with his functioning arm hanging out a bit. Wait, shut up. Bellowed out the Kalish cyborg, which somewhat didn't stop his two opponents in their current fit of humor. Ignoring them, he spoke. I'm sorry, but my conscience. In sight of the droid general, Scott halted his assault and spoke in a bewildered tone. Is there something going on here? Still laughing their guts out at this, Obi-Wan and Rhodey were losing some of their focus. Everyone be quiet. Just shut up. I'm trying to focus here. Grievous stomped his foot down, effectively silencing both men who now looked at the droid general bizarrely. I need a major timeout here. Without any further notice, Grievous shut off his lightsabers and walked more like Klimt away from them. Obi-Wan and Rhodey looked on, glancing at one another, as if trying to figure out what just happened. Even the droids that were nearby were left utterly bewildered as to what just happened. Rhodey said. What just happened? Obi-Wan stammered to find the right words. I don't wait, where's Scott? In the medical station of Malevolence, which was hardly even used in the first place, Grievous was lying down on a metal lab table with a medical droid standing off to the side. I don't know what to say, Doctor. Grievous said in serious contemplation. For the longest time I thought my consciousness long abandoned me after my transformation into this. Emphasizing the point, his hand swept towards his body. But now it's back. In sight of Grievous's armor, Scott was wondering how the fight transitioned into this exactly. I soon need to get out of here. Think my joke went a bit too far this time. Thought the ex-convict as he silently made his way out of the cyborg's shell before bolting for the medical bay's entrance. So when did your consciousness begin to speak with you, General? The therapist droid asked in its nasally voice. Just a few minutes ago. Grievous recounted, his one good arm over his eyes. My other arm stopped functioning and reason as to why was my consciousness. The droid general let out a choked sob. I thought I was more machine than man, but I never lost who I truly was after all these years. You've made surprisingly great progress, General. The droid therapist praised. Now tell me how you feel. Conflicted for one. Why? Haven't felt such conflict since the Huck War, as that was probably when I last heard from my conscious. Perhaps this may help in alleviating your confliction. The therapist droid stated, holding out a small folded note. Tilting his head, Grievous grabbed the note out of his therapist's hand and opened to read its contents. Grievous suddenly laughed heartily. "Ah, Ziggy. You always know what to say. So, have you tried communicating with your conscious general?" I have not. Let me try." Grievous cleared his throat. "Consciousness, are you there? Hello? Are you there? There's no need to be shy, you are my innermost thoughts after all. Is something the— Shut up. I'm trying to focus. Listen, I understand it has been some time, but I wish to make amends. Consciousness, please. Please. Sir?" The general fell to the ground on his knees, throwing his only functioning arm up in misery and self-pity. "Why have you forsaken me? Ahehehe." Grievous smashed the ground with his hand repeatedly, denting it further and further. Acting out of fear now, with the medical droid might be destroyed soon by Grievous's hands with his present erratic emotions, it quickly pulled out another Ziggy card and handed it towards its patient. "Wah Ziggy, always with what I need to feel better."